Did you know that Chiquita, the banana company, also smuggles guns and drugs? We're talking about Chiquita, the biggest banana corporation in the world. In 2007, they pled guilty to paying more than $1.7 million to a terrorist organization, and they smuggled 3,000 AK-47s to them and assisted them in smuggling drugs to Europe. But what you might not have known is that the banana industry has been involved in this shit for forever. Chiquita used to be United Fruit Company, and we're about to go from bananas to the entire global economic system and why every nation around the world is enslaved to the bankers and the CIA. Buckle up. Because what a lot of people don't realize is that the CIA wasn't formed until after World War II. But corporations were doing that same job for decades, even a century or two before intelligence agencies were officially formed. We're talking convincing foreign governments to kill their own civilians on behalf of corporate interests back in the early 1900s. Even before World War I, United Fruit helped instate a coup of Honduras, making the first banana republic. And then once the CIA was officially created, one of their first operations was helping United Fruit overthrow the government of Guatemala, their elected president. If you've been following along at all, you already know about how the Dulles brothers were involved here. And at this point, if you don't believe in quote-unquote conspiracy theories, you don't understand the global economy. As John Perkins laid out in the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, economic hitmen are highly paid professionals who cheat countries around the globe out of trillions of dollars. They funnel money from the World Bank, the U.S. Agency for International Development, and other foreign aid organizations into the coffers of huge corporations in the pockets of a few wealthy families who control the planet's natural resources. I should know, I was an economic hitman. And yes, they actually call themselves that. On the day in 1971 when I began working with my teacher, Claudine, she informed me, my assignment is to mold you into an economic hitman. My job, she said, was to encourage the world leaders to become part of a vast network that promotes U.S. commercial interests. In the end, those leaders become ensnared in a web of debt that ensures their loyalty. We can draw on them whenever we desire to satisfy our political, economic, or military needs. In turn, they bolster their political position by bringing industrial parks, power plants, and airports to their people. The owners of U.S. engineering and construction companies become fabulously wealthy. If the economic hitmen don't convince the governments of these countries to go along with this plan, then they send in the jackals, which is what you would normally think of as a hitman. And if that doesn't work, then they send in the military. He outlines how this has happened over and over again in more than a dozen countries all around the world. Because what most people don't realize about the CIA and intelligence agencies in general is that they were founded by corporate lawyers. The Dulles brothers, who founded the CIA, were both corporate lawyers at Sullivan and Cromwell. Even Bill Donovan, who was the founder of the OSS, the predecessor of the CIA during World War II, he was also a corporate lawyer. And these people and their agency has always been about international financial relationships first. All the James Bond stuff is mostly just movies and means to achieve the financial and business ends. Like, a lot of people associate these guys with like the 1950s and the end of World War II, but actually they both fought in World War I and they were instrumental in drafting the Dawes Plan, which was the plan that decided how Germany would get fucked up by war reparations after World War I, and America and German businesses will get deeply tied together by all this debt. That interwar period was not an accident. It was created by legal writings made by legal professionals, lawyers, and the Dawes Plan set up the Bank for International Settlement, whose initial purpose was to oversee the settlement of World War I war reparation, that created a web of international banking connections created by the BIS and the Dulles brothers and their friends on Wall Street and in London and Germany. And then the Bank of International Settlements was instrumental to all of these guys making money off of both sides, funding the Germans during World War II and funding the Allies. In the end, they got his brother John Foster to do it for them. The Bank of International Settlements handled all of the looted Nazi gold that they stole from all the countries they took over. And then, post-World War II, as everyone was deciding what to do with the German economy, and a lot of the more socialist-leaning people in the United States government wanted to completely destroy Germany's ability to be an economic powerhouse, abolishing the Bank of International Settlements was the top of their list. But Allen Dulles and all of his buddies had a very different plan. They wanted to remake Germany into this powerhouse that would be a bulwark against socialism and communism that was up in Russia. And what do you know, Allen Dulles was instrumental in the Bretton Woods agreements that decided what would happen with post-war Germany after World War II. They decided post-World War I and post-World War II, these same brothers. And so these same dudes were instrumental in setting up the Bank of International Settlements and the IMF and the World Bank. which are now the unholy trifecta of the global monetary cabal. And that system is instrumental in everything that John Perkins describes in his book, The Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Intelligence agencies aren't government agencies working for government interests. They never were. They were founded by corporate lawyers that realized that there are certain powers that corporations just don't have. One of which being legally being able to wage war, or legally being able to wage covert war. And through the founding of the CIA and other intelligence agencies around the world, corporations and corporate interests acquired the power to wage covert war. And just a few years later, Guatemala learned all about it. As did Iran, as did Panama, as did Chile, as did Vietnam. I could literally go on for an entire TikTok video. And yes, as a government agency, they are beholden to certain government policies. The CIA has to operate more or less within the structures of government. But that does not mean that the people in control of it and their financial and personal interests are aligned with our government and public interests. They have tricked us all into thinking that they are part of our government military directorate, that they are somehow fighting for the people. That has never been true. The intelligence agencies are a key part of the corporate control of the world, of the banking control of the world. That's why the dude that goes into all the supermarket aisles and talks about mega corporations owning all of our products also relentlessly talks about the CIA, despite it continually shadow banning my channels. Because corporations and covert warfare have been linked at the hip since long before any of us were born. And it's been a long time now that mega corporations and big banking interests have been the ones actually pulling the strings behind just about everything that happens in this world.